Dahi Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Shodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parirabhachara Sattva Satashishi His Divine Grace Aboy Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shal Haridasa Kora Ki Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Vrindavan Dhama Ki Mayapur Navadvip Dhama Ki, Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki, Ganga Mai Ki, Jamuna Mai Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Tulsi Maharani Ki, Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glories to the assembled ones. Oh, glories to the assembled ones. Oh, glories to the assembled ones. Glories of glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version, text number 39. Antahitendriyataya Haraye Vihitanjali Sarvabhutamayo Vishvam Sastajedam Sapurvavat Antahitendriyayata Haraye Vihitanjali Sarvabhutamayo Vishvam Sasajedam Sapurvavat. Antarhita, on the disappearance. Indriya Arthaya, unto the personality of Godhead, the objective of all senses. Haraye, unto the Lord. Vihita Anjalihi, in folded hands. Sarvabhuta, all living entities. Maya, full of. Vishvam, the universe. Sasarja, created. Idam, this. Saha, he. Brahmaji. Purvavat, exactly like before. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities as it was previously. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is the object for fulfilling the senses of all living entities. Illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy, the living entities worship the senses instead of engaging them properly in fulfilling the desires of the Supreme. In the Hari Bhakti Sudha Doya 13.2, there is the following verse. Akshnau phalam twadrisha darshanam hi. Tano phalam twadrisha gatra sangaha. Jiva phalam twadrisha kirtanam hi. Sudulabha bhagavata hi loke. Translation. O devotee of the Lord, the purpose of the visual sense is fulfilled simply by seeing you. And to touch your body is the fulfillment of bodily touch. The tongue is meant for glorifying your qualities, because in this world a pure devotee of the Lord is very difficult to find. End quote. Originally, the senses of the living entity were awarded for this purpose, namely, to engage them in the transcendental loving service of the Lord or that of his devotees. But the conditioned souls, illusioned by the material energy, became captivated by sense enjoyment. Therefore, the whole process of God consciousness is meant to rectify the conditional activities of the senses and to re-engage them in the direct service of the Lord. Lord Brahma thus engaged his senses in the Lord by recreating the conditioned living entities to act in the recreated universe. This material universe is thus created and annihilated by the will of the Lord. It is created to give the conditioned soul a chance to act, to return home back to Godhead, and servants like Brahmaji, Naradaji, Vyasaji, and their company become busy with the same purpose of the Lord, to reclaim the conditioned souls from the field of sense gratification and return them to the normal stage of engaging the senses in service of the Lord. Instead of doing so, for example, converting the actions of the senses, the impersonalists began to make the conditioned souls senseless and the Lord also senseless. That is improper treatment for the conditioned souls. The diseased condition of the senses may be treated by curing the defect, but not uprooting the senses altogether. When there is some disease in the eyes may be cured to see properly. Plucking out the eyes is no treatment. Similarly, the whole material disease is based on the process of sense gratification, and liberation from the diseased condition is re-engagement of the senses to see the beauty of the Lord, hear his glories, and act on his account. Thus, Brahmaji created the universal activities again. translation again. On the disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, who is the object of transcendental enjoyment for the senses of devotees, Brahma, with folded hands, began to recreate the universe, full with living entities, as it was previously. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Srivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So a major focus of this purport is the senses. So I thought I would talk a little bit about what are the senses, how they were created, where did they come from, leading up to the point that Prabhupada makes of the proper use of the senses. So, how many senses are there? No, Hari will tell me the maximum number. Who can tell me a few senses? 5. 10. Any other numbers? 1? One more. 10. No, Hari?
There's different working senses and acquiring knowledge senses.
So there's 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 sense objects, and then the mind. 16. And where'd they come from? Popped out of somewhere in the cycle of creation. First there was the pradhan, the material creation, and from the pradhan, which is like an unmanifest form of everything, in a little corner of the pradhan there was a cloud known as the Mahatattva. It was where things started to become manifest. From the Mahatattva, false ego was manifested. And then there's false ego in different modes, mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. So which mode of the false ego do you think is the source of the senses? Ignorance. Dull senses, dull material senses. Yeah. Actually, the mode of passion. The mode of passion. False ego in the mode of passion generates the intelligence, passion, activity, intelligence. Mind is generated from the mode of goodness, false ego in the mode of goodness. And the senses also are generated from the mode of passion. The 5 knowledge acquiring senses. That's the sense of sight, the sense of hearing, the sense of taste, the sense of touch. There's 4. Sense of smell. Okay, and the 5 sense objects are smell. Eyes. Oh, sorry, eyes. No, so hang on. Yeah. There's a distinction between the acquiring senses and then the sense objects. So, the nose comes. Then there's 5 more senses. It's a nice table listed there. Then the working senses, they are the tongue, the belly, the arms, the genitals, and the anus. Did I get 5 there? Okay, the 5 working senses. And then the mind. Okay. 16. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, describes the hierarchy of the senses, a hierarchy of bodily functions. It says, Indriyani means the senses. Paranya ahu, indriyebhya param manaha. Manasas means the mind, to para buddhi. Buddhi is the intelligence. Yo buddhe paratas tu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. So, hierarchy of bodily functions. We've got a body, but the distinction of what sort of body and the way that body can function is determined by the quality of the senses. A worm has a body, and in the early days, the Bhakti leader, he did a little skit to try and train us. He said, what's the difference between us and, say, another type of living entity? And one of the devotees was asked to lie on the ground, and then we put a chadar over him, and then another chadar, and eventually we couldn't see the form of the person. It would look like a big lump, like a big worm. So the difference is that different layers of covering, so the quality of the senses is different. So it's a body, and then the senses are the active principle of the body. The action, we do action with the senses. So the working senses are superior to dull matter. When we talk about body and activities, we're talking about how the senses work, those 16 senses. That's the business of being in a particular body. You get a particular body with a particular set of senses, a particular tongue, a particular way of perceiving things. So mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. It's another statement in the Bhagavad Gita is said that one can live happily in the body when all the gates of the body are illumined with knowledge. They're clean. They're attuned to reality. They're not contaminated, not disturbed, not blocked, not being just outlets for lust. But they're outlets and inlets for higher reality. Bodily action means the function of the senses. And then the purport here, this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text number 42, goes on to describe, in the Katha Upanishad there is a similar passage in which is said that the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses, and mind is superior to the sense objects. So, dull matter, senses which are more active, and the objects of sense gratification are they're superior. They have a power of their own. And in order to, and that's the nature of the material world. Lord Brahma, he goes about to recreate the material world and fill it up with living entities, to give all the living entities a chance to rehabilitate themselves, to rectify their mentality, to purify their involvement with enjoyment, sense gratification, to change personal sense gratification. It's like the Rolling Stones, they had a song. I can't get no satisfaction. I've tried, and I've tried, and I've tried, but I can't get no satisfaction. It's the living entities in the material world. They're trying to enjoy the senses. And once they come to the point of admitting that there's no satisfaction, then they start to, with the guidance, with the help, with the mercy of transcendental knowledge, they start to purify their senses and upgrade their qualities of sense gratification. And then that's the process of karma yoga, to begin with acknowledging that senses employed for my pleasure are limited. Big bowl of ice cream, tubs of ice cream. We had an ice cream pizza award-winning devotee in Sydney, and he would invite us around to his pizza parlour, his ice cream parlour. He had a contract with his boss that he could supply as much ice cream, gelato, to his friends as he liked. He would make 10,000 litres a week, and 7 of us would rock up, and he put about 8 times 5, 40 litres of gelato in front of us. And we did a pretty good job. I think Priyavada was there. He called for one of those big Eskimo jackets after the end of it. He got hypothermia. He just and then we got extra to take home. So for the next couple of days we also had access to the gelato. But after a certain period of time we said, no more. It was exquisite, first class gelato. What's that called? Panna cotta. Panna cotta, baked cream flavour and pistachio and exquisite stuff. But at a certain time you become saturated, the material sense becomes saturated. It was prasadam, it was offered, it was in the association of devotees. The temple president found out where we were and he rang up and we answered, okay, this is the preaching centre down here at the ice cream parlour. And we said, okay, bring us some back. We didn't get into trouble for that. But the senses have a level of satiation. They're limited. And of course there was the, what do you call it, not the hors d'oeuvres, the accompaniments. It said when you're taking good food, prasadam especially, the association of devotees helps to enhance that experience. You're sitting together and there's nice conversation, there's nice exchanges. Here, have some more, come on. Which is your favourite? Enthusiasm. So, but still, that's limited. That was more pleasure in the mode of transcendental passion. Prasadam, there's different types of prasadam. Mode of goodness, food stuff is characterized by being fatty, wholesome, juicy, and promoting long life. Mode of passion is excessive in one, spicy, hot, salty, different things like that. So there are certain foodstuffs, I believe that halva is more characteristic of the mode of passion. It's intense, it's rich, it's very strong. But when used in the service of Krishna, then that passion can be transcendentalized. Prabhupada says that molasses, when it's mixed with something else, can be upgraded. And of course, prasadam, when it's offered with love, it becomes, and then the great devotees take, and then you take their remnants, that's maha prasadam, so it can be transformed by the experience of dealing with it. So the conditioned living entities, we met a person, brief exchange, and they said, have you got any of that halva? 20 years ago, I tasted it, I can still remember the experience. It's something that goes deep, that people can get uplifted, and that's one of the functions of prasadam. That it attracts the senses, it attracts the mind, and when the mind is struggling at the time of stress, the time of departing from the body, then those different images flash before in the mind. And what we derive the greatest satisfaction from, what we're the most attached to, it fixes on that. So prasadam can transport us to a higher reality. We can eat our way back home, back to Godhead. Generally though, the senses are, how is it spoken? Illusioned by the glaring reflection of the external energy. The living entities worship the senses instead of them engaging them properly. When you're young and then you reach puberty and suddenly the senses come alive, you can they get into another dimension, and suddenly you start to realise, yeah, I'm powerful. I've got access to things I can enjoy, instead of just being a struggler. As a young, undeveloped individual, the body's not so developed. You're like a little animal, and so you're just going around, just immediate sense gratification. There's different levels of Brahman realisation. Anamoy. Anamoy is the beginning, which then eventually goes to pranamoy, to manamoy or jnanamoy, then vijnanamoya, and then anandamoya. So anamoya means, and you can, as an example, you can imagine a little child. Ana means foodstuff. So the total Brahman realisation is that everything depends upon the tongue. Everything goes in the mouth. That's how I want to experience it. So then slowly they start to develop. And pranamoy, the breathing, the action, the interaction, they start to become aware of things beyond just the tongue. I can touch, I can move. This is my mum, I can control her, and different things like that. After a while, then school or reading, learning. So jnanamoy, manamoy, the life within the mind, I can start to develop different awareness, different concepts. Vijnanamoy is the next level up. Vijnanamoy, some knowledge, some wisdom, to meet a learned soul and to start saying, okay, yeah, I'd really like to become like that person. I'd like to learn, I'd like to... And finally, when those levels of realisation of the world mature, then anandamoya, the bliss of relationship with the Supreme. That's a higher level of Brahman realisation. Through that progress of the development of the use of the senses, the use of the mind. How did we get here in the first place? Being spirit soul, originally pure, part and parcel of the Supreme, we found ourselves in this material world. Long ago in the distant past, we were happy in our relationship with the Supreme. So it's a time immemorial, anadi, since time immemorial. It's almost endless, but it was a particular time. So something creeped in, a little germ, a little virus, a little bug bit us, and we just thought, I want to enjoy like that. I want to be the centre of attention. I want to be the Supreme. Why is it Krishna? Envy, a little seed of envy crept in. And that immediately plunged us down into the material world. First stop was the post of Lord Brahma. Okay. Now you can be like Brahma. But it's not the same. It's different. Just like you can drive, you can be travelling, and then you enter into the transcendental realm, the dham, the farm. New Govardhana farm, dham. You can experience. There's a lightness. There's a freshness. There's a different sort of energy, an exuberance. The spiritual world is other places. You're coming out from the town. You've been in the mud, you come out from the mud, you get into the town, and there's a little bit more action, a little bit more liveliness, passion, city, development. You start to go out to the country and it's a little bit more mode of goodness, it's a little bit more easy on the mind. And you get into the front of the dham, and it's just joy. It's sweet. There's going to be devotees there. There's going to be Krishna there. There's going to be service there. The different realms. You start to uplift your and appreciate that this is where I prefer to be. I remember going to Mayapur, and we would hear that the Holy Dham, how is it stated? In the spiritual world, time is conspicuous by its absence. You just, it's eternal time. The Holy Dham, it's in a different realm, it's in the transcendental realm. So we would be in the Holy Dham, we'd stay there for some time, and we'd feel, we'd forget about the world. The first 6 months that we were in Mayapur, we just stayed within Mayapur. I don't think we even crossed the river to go to the town. No, we were just so satisfied. And after being there for some time, then you think, yeah, I'd like to remain in this state forever. And you come back, you get on the plane, you come back to the West, yes, I want to remain in that state. Half an hour later, the mode of passion's got you hit in the face. And it's just different quality of energy, captured by the mind, captured by the senses. So to work with the modes, to work with the mind, our business is to understand how the modes are working and identify how the impact they have upon us. To not become controlled by the modes, to work with the modes. Oh, it's early in the morning, I don't feel like getting up, but I know that it's a nice peaceful time and I can focus my mind easier. As soon as the sun rises, then the mode of passion is starting to manifest. I'm going to have to be active, so I want to take advantage of the time before the sunrise, Mangalarti and chanting japa and studying and hearing about Krishna, seeing the Lord. And then later on in the day, as we get tired, as the sun has reached its peak, we've worked hard, we've taken a nice full meal, we've rested a little bit. As it gets towards the evening time, when the darkness is starting to settle in, the mode of ignorance is becoming more prominent, then we think, okay, that's enough, time to switch off. I'm going to take rest so I can rejuvenate myself so that I can rise early again the next morning. He said that spiritual life begins or is focused on the tongue. The tongue is the central, sarirara vidyajal, the tongue. The tongue is the most voracious, so the tongue has two functions. It can be used to taste and to vibrate. So we control the tongue, and the way to have the tongue in a good state is to take rest early. In the temples in the city, they often have a late offering, the 9 o'clock offering. 3 ghee sabjis, hot milk, 12 ladus, puris, 12 puris. People get into a 9 o'clock prasadam syndrome. And then they can't wake up in the morning and they're struggling through the day, and by the end of the day now I'm alive again and I'll take another rich dose of prasadam and I'm feeling alive, but then hard to sleep. And you've got to break that cycle. You've got to take rest early before the 9 o'clock. You can honour it, but be careful, protect the senses, protect the mind. And it's clear towards the end of the purport the difference of the Vaishnava devotional process and the Mayavad process. Saturate the senses with service, engage the senses, be active. Take like Maharaj Ambarish, there's a lot of verses quoted about him, how he is the example of a mat paraha devotee. Savai manaha Krishna padara vindayo. He used his legs to walk to the temple. He used his eyes to see the deity. He used his sense of smell to smell the flowers and the incense of it. He used his sense of touch to associate with the devotees and to serve the devotees. And in that way his mind was fully absorbed in thinking about Krishna. So Mat Paraha, this is the goal. to follow in the footsteps of such devotees. And in the meantime, if we try and associate, where we're struggling a little bit, we go and find somebody who is, we would consider an exemplar in that field. Oh, Prabhu, I notice you're a connoisseur of how to get the finest out of a nice plate of prasadam. Avoid this, take this, eat with this person, take in the right quantities at the right time, after serving all the devotees and making sure that they're satisfied. So I can learn from you. I can learn how to see. I can learn how to think. I can learn how to study. Please let me associate, get the benefit of all these things, how I can remain fixed in devotional service. And that's the business of Brahma, that's the business of the spiritual master, it's the business of devotees, to assist people, assist conditioned souls. We're all conditioned, aspiring to become devotees. So we need help. We need help to reach out and to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that every good, honest devotee should be prepared to shed hundreds of gallons of blood, work hard, give their everything in order to extract somebody from their wallowing in the material energy, their conditioning. And just if somebody shows a little interest, they've opened the door, they're responsive. I've heard that this flood has been a gift in disguise. The community has received so much attention from Krishna Prasadam, from devotees working side by side to help them to rebuild their businesses, and so now they're starting to come in contact with the devotees. They're asking questions again. They're normal people. They're not up on a hill. They're not hiding away. We can take advantage of something they've got to give. They're ready to give. So that little opening, then in like a needle, out like a plough. Somebody shows a little interest, and then before you know it, they've shaved up and they're chanting 16 rounds. Might take a couple of lifetimes, but you never know. So to help them with that, rather than the opposite, the Mayavadi process. Meditate, switch off. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be involved in anything. It's just all Maya. Senseless. The senses are like enemies. Bilwa Mangal Thakur, he's an example of somebody who, for a higher purpose, exhibited that idea. He went to visit a king, and the king's wife was very beautiful. He was trying to control his senses, but he became attracted to the beautiful form of the queen, and he, with a devotional attitude or trying to demonstrate something, he approached her and said, can I beg a boon from you? And she said, yeah, sure. What? He said, can I borrow one of your hairpins? And so she gave, and he took it and he plucked out his eyes. Because he said his eyes were his enemies. After some time, then Krishna, understanding his sincerity, he gave him back his sight. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he again, associated with Prabhupada, he was lamenting his previous condition before he was a devotee. Material sense gratification, indulgence in sex, indulgence in all sorts of debilitating activities. And he mentioned to Prabhupada that, well, I've blown my brains out. I've destroyed my senses. I don't have any resources left. How am I going to engage in devotional service? How am I going to perfect myself and serve the Lord? Prabhupada said, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not exactly sure, but he said to the sense of, don't worry, the soul has senses. By purifying yourself, the soul's senses will assist you. So you can't see if you get diseased senses, if you lose the sense of sight. The other senses, they compensate. There's a devotee, she suddenly became blind at the age of 18. Then she became a devotee, and by hearing about Vrindavan, she was able to travel there and to perceive the essence of Vrindavan more so than somebody who's got 20/20 vision. My senses are so defective. I've got to close my eyes while I'm listening to kirtan because I get distracted. I'm trying to hear the different sounds. I'm such a mediocre musician, if any type of musician. So the senses, you imagine, and having the eyes, I can hardly read. I put on glasses and suddenly it's another world. The senses get upgraded, but defective senses, and when the senses are, you can't with Nagrayan Indriya, you cannot perceive the nature of transcendental reality with our dull, blunt material senses. But by engaging those senses of devotional service, then Krishna reveals himself. So the disease, we have a disease, we have a contamination, we're dirty, with that desire for sense enjoyment, that lust. So the process is not to rip it out. One stage we were travelling and the body just collapsed. It was so sick. But there was, I thought, one side effect, one benefit. I was so weak that I couldn't contemplate sense enjoyment. I thought, oh wow, this is a relief. But that's completely unhealthy. Sex desire is healthy. Sex desire is natural. But how to use that sex desire, use that energy for serving Krishna. If you want to have children, have Krishna conscious children. Train the children. 20 years of penance and austerity. Look after the kids. You prepared to do that? Use your sex desire to have children. And that's the proper use of it. Then you become purified. You become uplifted. I understand. What's the use of having this energy? What's the use of having these senses? So having them sick and dull and not clean, it's a disease condition. The cure for the eyes is you get an operation, you get the cataracts cut out, you put some glasses on, you do exercise, you do yoga, you try and come to the proper state of healthy life in order to be fit enough to engage our body, our mind, our senses in Krishna's service. And then the whole world opens up of wonderful attractions to another state of reality. There is quite a difference in our Vaishnava Primer course. We were trying to just begin that the students would understand the difference between matter and spirit. The difference between matter and spirit, and it's quite clear. Matter is temporary and spirit is eternal. So the material, even we feel some happiness in the material world, if it's temporary, it's material. Eternal, it's everlasting, it's going to expand, it's got something to build on. Then that's spiritual activity, spiritual sense enjoyment, spiritual service. We're serving ourselves. I'm the centre of attention, I'm pretty good. But then pride steps in and you get chucked off the pedestal. You fall off the wave. So it's not permanent. It's not real. So different standards of how to purify the mind, purify the senses, engage the senses properly in Krishna's service. Remove the diseased condition, not by wiping them out, not by obliterating, not by saying that they don't exist. The mind, the mind's giving me so much trouble. It's not going to go away. It's your companion. You've got to learn to live with the mind. You should make the mind your best friend rather than it being your worst enemy. The mind will always come up with these suggestions. Prabhu, we should go off here and we could do this. And don't listen to the mind. Beat the mind. No, I want to associate with devotees. It's painful. I don't like the taste of the medicine. I've got jaundice. I can't eat. It's bitter. Keep taking the medicine. Keep taking the medicine, and eventually it becomes sweet. Keep taking the medicine, and eventually it becomes sweet, and we become eager, desperate to associate with devotees in whatever capacity we can, to serve the devotees, to understand the devotees, to help the devotees, to reveal our mind to the devotees, to share gifts with the devotees, loving exchanges with devotees. So that's the reason why the senses are there. The object for fulfilling the senses of all living activities, Krishna and Krishna's devotees. That's the purpose of having senses. Indriya artaya. Indriya, senses, artha is value. What's the value of having senses? To serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even a worm can serve, even a worm and stool can act in service. But the quality of their senses, the quality of their interaction is limited. So we've got the human form of life. It's a gift. Use it or lose it. If we use it properly to serve Krishna, then it's a valuable life. If not, then another life awaits us, another body, to fulfill those desires that we kept lurking in the background, that we didn't know how to spiritualize, we didn't know how to Krishnaize. So I better stop. Ask if there's any questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for that nice class. I have two questions. My first question is, we're talking about how the intelligence is superior to the mind and the soul is superior to intelligence. Well, what is the actual difference between intelligence and the soul?
Buddhi and Atma. The soul, the intelligence is considered to be the next door neighbour of the soul. Consciousness is the symptom of the soul, and consciousness is expressed through the intelligence. What you're conscious of, then that will direct your intelligence. I'm conscious of, I'm a servant of Krishna, so intelligently I try and do things to serve the devotees and serve. But if my intelligence is not, and my consciousness is not clean, then the expression of the soul through the consciousness is deviated. No, I should be getting the devotees to serve me. So the intelligence is off. It's, what's the word? Aruya Krichrana Pradampadam. If one's intelligence is not clean, if one hasn't developed a relationship, if one doesn't know how to worship the lotus feet of the Lord, then even though he thinks he's liberated, he's still fallen.
Would you say that that's kind of like directed by the super soul to the soul, and it's a subtle?
The super soul is the companion of the soul. You can't exist in the body, the soul, without the super soul. When the body's no longer inhabitable, then the soul and the super soul. The super soul is a representative of Krishna, non-different from Krishna.
Thank you. And my other question was, you were saying how when we have that fraction of a moment that we think like, oh, I want to be like Krishna, I want to enjoy that Krishna, we fall into the material existence. And the first stage would be to come like Brahma. But is that like, I don't know, is that a standard thing? Because everybody individually, like, is it standard that you go through the first stage, you go through this Brahma, or could you go to other stage, like based on the desires, the specific desires that you have?
First port of call is Lord Brahma. At that point, you're given the option. You can, because Lord Brahma, when the universe becomes inundated, then the developed living entities, they go to the planet of Lord Brahma, and from that planet they can go to the spiritual world. So if we come down, we're given the option at the position of Lord Brahma. Well, do you want to return back, or do you want to carry on? As soon as you say, no, I'm committed, that was a desire, I'm going to have it. So Lord Brahma says, okay, here's your defects package. It's like you're up on an airplane, here's your parachute. Imperfect senses, tendency to make mistakes, cheating, and subject to illusion. So then you start to go down and fulfill those different desires.
Thank you.
So, Nima Manaji was asking about the intelligence and the soul. Is there any difference? So we also hear that soul has spiritual intelligence, spiritual mind, spiritual senses, spiritual form, and on the absence of that form, then there's no difference. So senses, form, as good as the person, the soul, the same.
As good as the soul. They're the tools, the instruments of the soul. Yeah, the soul is Satchitananda Vigraha. Eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So in that state, having removed all of the contamination of the material world, the contaminated consciousness, the ahankara, then we're situated properly. We're in our rightful situation. We're acting as a soul, not acting as the body anymore. So we utilise, our senses no longer, the gates of the body are purified with knowledge. So the intelligence is purified. At that stage, we're practically up to the level of Lord Brahma. We're heading towards his planet. Or perfect in Krishna consciousness. Is that sort of what you're getting towards? It was a long question.
Yeah, it was like Krishna's absolute, so his name, his form, his qualities, his pastimes are as good as his self, they're all the same. So like when we hear Krishna's name or we hear about his pastimes, as good as directly associating with Krishna directly. So I'm saying with the soul, the senses, the spiritual senses, the spiritual mind, spiritual form, at the same potency as the soul itself, are non-different from the soul in their purified state.
In their purified state, yeah. We can't rely upon rationality and reasoning and pure intelligence. We have to rely upon the Krishna within the heart, revealing to us the nature of reality and us being able to perceive that and seeing, even at the stage of bhava, there can be a slight contamination where we're still not, like Bharat Maharaj, he became attached to the deer. So even though he was expert in executing devotional service, still there was something that kept him back. So purified senses, they're no longer the bodily. The senses are engaged purely in the sense, and our proper designation becomes apparent. So at that stage, yes, they're non-different, and it's not all one. There's still, like Krishna, there's Krishna, and he's got his individual weapons, his individual things like that. They're servants of Krishna. Krishna's the supreme, and he has all these servants. So the same thing, the soul, having the purified intelligence and mind to serve Krishna's desire, is complete, is whole, is able to connect directly with Krishna. And there's 5 different processes for engaging in direct devotional service. Most potent services. Studying Srimad Bhagavatam with attention, serving the deities with love, chanting Hare Krishna purely in the association of devotees, residing in a holy place, and the last one, associating properly with devotees. Knowing how to associate with devotees. We have to discriminate. Devotees, they're exhibiting the mood of Kanishta Adhikari, attached, not so fully faithful. Majjhima Adhikari, they're fully faithful, fully fixed, but if they've got some questions, there might be some incompleteness in their knowledge, and the pure, unalloyed devotee, who we just immediately feel that we want to worship them, and we feel inspired to chant by their association. Different levels of devotees, we have to discriminate, but we want to associate with devotees, so we associate with them properly. Not that everybody's a pure, unalloyed devotee and we can just surrender our lives completely to them. We have to take note, this person, they're good at directing me towards the temple, but beyond that there's something missing. So I'll associate with them in limited doses, and when I've had enough, say, thank you, Prabhu, I've got some service to do, I've got an appointment, and try and find higher association. The secret to making advancement in spiritual life is to seek out advanced association. So in order to seek out advanced association, Duryodhana and Arjuna, they were tested. Yudhisthira and Duryodhana, they were tested. Go out into the world, Duryodhana was tested, find somebody who's better than you. And Yudhishthira was sent out in the world, find somebody who's lower than you. At the end of the day, they came back and they were asked to report. Duryodhana, epitome of Kali Yuga, of envy, of nastiness. He was asked, so did you find somebody? And he said, nope, there's nobody better than me. And Yudhishthira was asked, the epitome of humility and truthfulness and just association, determination to be a servant of Krishna. He was asked, so did you find anybody who's lower than you? He said, no. Two different degrees, different levels of devotee. A devotee is always thinking of Krishna but unfavourably, still engaged in devotional service, but it's not pure devotional service. And somebody who is on the level of pure devotee, Uttama Adhikari, they are devoid of the propensity to criticize others. So it means that if we're not on that level, then there's a little spot of the tendency to criticize others. On pride is there.
So, how do we discriminate without judgments?
Discriminate with?
How do we discriminate without judgments?
Without judgment, we have to use our intelligence. Intelligence means that we understand the criteria, and we then also refer to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. I think that this is it. From my study of Shastra, it says like this, but I could be wrong. You go and approach somebody, is my interpretation of this right? What's your take on this? And then the Guru, you hear other people who are recognised authorities, they're repeating the same thing. And you can also take that, well, but they were directing in that way. But still, I remember when the 11th canto was just finished and published, I was travelling with some older godbrothers, and within the first couple of weeks they'd already memorised a few verses. And they were quoting those verses, they were studying those verses, they were inquiring, they were interested in what was going on. I'd be sitting there in the days, well, okay, it's a new book, nice new pictures and like that, but the older devotees who have got a little bit more sense control, they will enter into it. And still you need to use your sense of critical judgment as to their behaviour. Is there some areas where they're not correct in there? Maybe I should get some guidance from them, but I have to verify it with somebody else. And even the mass, when 9 out of 10 are saying it's like this, then I'll accept like that. If one person out of 10 says, well, Prabhupada said, often it will be brought to Prabhupada's attention, he said, I never said that. An interpretation. It's so easy to misinterpret, to just give a whiff of the actual idea and speak authoritatively, but to have academic integrity, to know what you talk, to walk your talk and to know what you're talking about. And it's the responsibility of a person with knowledge to share what they've got and to not speak beyond their realization, to not confuse other people. And ultimately the position of the Brahmana within society, they are valuable because they are trustworthy, because you can learn to trust what they say, because what they say, they'll stick by it. They're only going to speak the truth. And so much so that when a dear devotee of Krishna, a Brahmana, speaks, Krishna himself also upholds that truth. He can adjust things, but it has to be a devotee on such a level. So we should seek out good association. We should become good association. We should learn to discriminate, use our judgment. What do I know? What don't I know? And who can help me to find out? We're all ignorant. We all don't know. But then the first point of readdressing that situation is to accept that we don't know and that we should ask. Prabhu, please help me. That takes humility.
Prabhu was asking me the other day, do devotees love everyone? Devotees are just love every person.
I have to speak slower.
Do devotees love everyone?
Do devotees love everyone? Yeah, Prabhupada, he was once asked, everybody seems to love you. Everybody loves you, Prabhupada. Why is that? Prabhupada says, yes, because I love everyone. But when you're offering obeisance to devotees, when you're massaging a devotee, when you're serving a devotee, you're recognizing the super soul, you're recognizing the spiritual aspect, so you're offering service to the spiritual aspect. So you love all of Krishna and Krishna's creation. There's a verse in that Gurudev prayer, please give me the ability to honour all living entities. So you honour their connection with Krishna, you honour their existence as part and parcel of Krishna. But as Lord Jesus described, you should hate the sin, not the sinner. So somebody who might be exhibiting something that's not Krishna conscious, then you recognise that, well, first time it could be just a mistake, the contamination. It's not them, it's the modes that are acting. But if it continues, then you can say once bitten, twice shy. There's something seriously wrong here. I'll give them a wide berth. But still, offering respect from a distance. The culture of how to associate with devotees. Takes practice.
Because Prabhupada says he loves everyone, he uses it as a broad term because he also said just honouring people. So because we can love everyone, or can we love everyone as we're supposed to love Krishna? Because when we love Krishna, we're like dedicate our whole lives to him. So if we love everyone, how do we dedicate our whole lives to everyone?
By giving them Krishna. Yeah. That's the essential exchange. That's the art of the exchange between devotees. Matchita, Matkita. They're always enlivening each other and conversing about Krishna. So that's an exhibition of true love, true compassion, to give people Krishna, to recognise their connection with Krishna and help to revive them, revitalise them. To pander to their, that might be temporary, just to get over the reluctance to associate, but yeah, give your association. Don't take their association, but give your association. Okay. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavatam ki jai.